Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Improve with Apollo, the show that I take in emails with replays in from the community to help a specific individual improve within StarCraft 2, and in hope of improving that one guy, I can also help improve a lot of other players out there that are watching these videos. So thank you very much, first of all, for watching. Thank you very much for sending in all your emails. I'm getting so many different emails from all of you guys wanting to be improved from me, and I hope I can do that one step at a time. Today, though, we have another episode, and it is going to be with a Terran player who is in Diamond League, who is struggling against Zerg players. As you can see on the mini-map, there is a Zerg down in the bottom right, and we are going to try to figure out what's his problem and how I can help him today. So let's now go take a look at his email that he sent in. Welcome to the show! Hello, Peter, who is a Diamond ex-master Terran player who's struggling with the Terran versus Zerg matchup. Please help me out if you can and see where I went wrong. So Peter is 21 years old from Canada. Welcome once again to the show. I've played competitively for around 2 years, but have been playing casually since Brood War, so a long time playing StarCraft. I play Terran and focus mainly on biocompositions. All right, Marines, Marauders. I like to play aggressively, but as of late, have struggled immensely against Heavy Queen Masterling style Zerg play. My strengths are my micro, but I feel I could exploit timings better and have better overall decision making. All right, well, thank you very much for sending in your email, Peter. And I've actually gone through your replay, as you could see it playing in the background already. I want to bring up, I've watched your replay, and I want to bring up something which I noticed within the email. In the email, excuse me, where's my drink? Hold on. Thank you. You said that your strength is your micro, and you like to play aggressive. Well, this may come as a shock to you, and maybe to other players out there who have very similar attributes, that this is actually, weirdly to say, your weakness. And I'm going to explain why throughout this video and help you and put you back on the right tracks. What I noticed is that throughout your game that you've sent in to me is that you focus very heavily on your unit control. And you do have good micro. Do not, I'm not saying your unit micro is bad and that's your actual weakness, but it's good, but it's what you actually have to sacrifice to make it good that is your weakness. So the biggest two things that stand out in today's episode and today's replay, Peter, is that your multitasking, your ability to control the units is great, but your ability to add SCVs and add units, for example, is weak. And that's what I want to really look at today and help you improve with that. But also, the whole backbone of your Terran versus Zerg is a little bit wonky. And when I mean backbone and wonky, I mean that the build that you use isn't precise. And that is what's hurting you a lot, is that you don't have the right barracks count. You aren't adding on the right things at the right time. And this is slowing you down. And that's going to be the biggest thing to improve in your game, is actually knowing your build properly from the 0 minute mark until, let's say, the 12-30 minute mark, when Terran no longer needs to add anything else. And I'm going to walk you through that today. So let's just start off with a little bit of a test, just to actually show you, because maybe you don't believe me, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I'm going to do a bit of a test with everyone out there at home too. I paused it at 3 minutes and 20 seconds, and the reason why I've paused it here is because the orbital command that you've just built is now finished. I don't want to look at anything else. I want you to keep in consideration while we do this test, look at the minimap, and obviously you can see in the top left, your Reaper's about to finish, and we want to look at the minimap. And just you can see that you're using the Reaper basically. But the overall test, let's count how many SCVs, or how long should I say, does it take you to build 10 SCVs. SCVs, by the way, take 17 seconds to build. Keep that in mind. We're going to run this little test, okay? So I'm going to play it from this point, and we're going to count the SCVs at the bottom together, and we'll just see how long it takes to build 10, right? I mean, it's just 10 SCVs. All right, let's go. So I'm going to click the orbital command, and we're going to go from this point. So a little bit slow with the initial one out the gate. We'll get there. There's one. All right, let's go. 1. And I'm going to count them. So that's 1 finished. On the mini-map, I'll pause it, by the way, as your second SCV is building. There's a Reaper down there. Just keep that in mind. 2. Finished. 3 starts. I'm going to speed it up now. 3 finish. 4 finish. Where's 5? 5. 6. 7. 8 SCV finished. 9 SCV finished and 10 SCV queued up and finished. Bam! 8:26. So, if we think back to where we just were, it was 3 minutes 20 seconds when the orbital command finished and SCV production should have begun. It's now 8:26. Let's just round that up to roughly 5 minutes worth of time. So now, I'm going to do math on a video, on stream, on a video, on YouTube. Do it with me. All right. It took you 5 minutes, to build 10 SCVs. If one SCV takes 17 seconds to build, how many SCVs were you capable of building and when should you finish with 10? So let's just look at 5 minutes. 60 seconds in a minute times by 5 minutes, 300 seconds. That's how long it took. Now let's divide 300 seconds by 17, which is the count for the SCV, right? So that gives us 17.64. And that's 17 SCVs that you can build in 5 minutes. How many did you build? 10. So there are 7 SCVs missing to what is normal. And it's not like you have to be sick good, amazing pro, to be able to build all these SCVs. You just need to be consistent with the production and you get 17 SCVs in 5 minutes. You had 10, which is 7 missing. And if you think to any game that maybe I've casted or you've seen played, maybe even played out yourself, where you've gone into an opponent's base, killed off 7 workers, and you're like, yeah, I killed 7 workers, yeah. Well, let's just think that you've lost those 7 workers by hurting yourself and your opponent hasn't even touched you. You're down 7 SCVs. So that's kind of scary to think about, right? And that is simply through controlling your units and not looking back at home or using your hotkeys properly. So let's go to the next little backup test of this. Let's now do the reverse. I want to follow your command. I'm going to just follow you, and we're going to keep the orbital command selected and just watch what you do with your units, I would imagine, while building SCV. So this is your command, right? This is Peter's control. So he's in his base. Well, let's watch when he starts to control his units, though. Do you see any SCVs building right now? No? Adding on production. SCV starts. Cool. All right. So let's just track that one SCV. All right. Let's slow it down. All right. SCV's finished. Controlling hellions, controlling reapers. No SCVs. You see? This is basically what's going on. So in the start of this game, that reaper that you were controlling around scouting and stuff, you weren't building SCVs. And again, as you can see now, you're controlling these units, but you're not built. This is a long time that we don't actually see SCV in production. And this is a little bit scary because as you pointed out, your micro can be your strength, but it is also your weakness. As you now go back, I imagine you begin SCV production once again. Okay, so let's pause there again. So this is a major concern of mine of you looking to improve yourself. This stood out and alarm bells are ringing. But not only that, once I finished looking around at this, I was like, all right, let me just check what he's got back at home. Wait a minute. Only 3 barracks at the 10-minute mark. And in a professional game, there's always 5 barracks building at the 10-minute mark that have Marines pumping out at the 10-minute mark. So this is a little bit alarming to see only 2 barracks finished and a 3rd one about to be finished compared to a normal setup, which is 5 barracks. And then I look down and I'm like, okay, there's a gas missing, unit count is low, combat shield is missing, the factory hasn't switched up to offer its ability to build reactors for the barracks, for the starport, and so on and so on and so on. So from this point, I was like, okay, so if we fast forward it, until let's say the 13-minute mark, I just want to show you a number which is maybe a little bit shocking to you, but shouldn't be the case as well. So 13-minute mark is basically when a Terran player has pretty much completely finished with his production and is fully saturated across 3 bases and is looking to just hammer home with the unit production, right? That's the point of the game that we see the 4th command center come in and the waypoint rally of Terran. Granted, yes, you are. I do not think that I'm mistaking you for being a pro gamer or something. But this is, in Terran vs. Zerg, very important to be able to map out your build order and know exactly what time you should be at. Even if you can't necessarily be there always at the right time, you're close to it. At the 30-minute mark, the only thing I want to show you, because we all know now that your production's a little bit behind, the SCV count. 49 SCVs is very, very weak. In your main base, you have 7 out of a potential 16. 16 is the right amount of SCVs to have in minerals, which gives you the best income for the SCVs that you are putting out there. So the 21 mark, if I'm not mistaken, because I've never actually looked at this properly, let's say 7 out of 21, as you can see here. For anyone that is maybe confused with this number, I think 21 SCVs will give you the optimal, the highest possible income per minute, but isn't the most effective, if I'm not mistaken. 16 is always the most effective on each mineral line, over 24, for example. So here you got 4 SCVs too many. You've got way too few inside here, and you have almost none on this base. 50 SCVs at the 30-minute mark is very, very weak. Okay, so now what I want to do is jump out of this game and jump into another one that I have pre-made thanks to my friend from Team Liquid, Bunny, the recent addition. Thank you very much for sending me this game. I did ask him if he had a mapped out, completely standard macro Terran vs. Zerg game he could give me that wasn't a long game. I was very specific when I was talking to him. I'm like, all right, I need this, 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 and this. No SCV skips, man. I need the barracks on time. I don't you want to make any mistakes, and I need the game not to be longer than 50 minutes. Do you have that? And he was like, yeah. So thank you very much for helping me out and allowing everyone else to learn from you, which is very nice. So thank you very much. All right, so let's now jump in to this game. What I want to look at here is we will do the same test when the orbital command finishes, just for demonstration's sake. But what is more important for me to teach you today and to learn from is, yes, you... actually, no, I forgot to show you something, but I will show you in this game as an example. What I wanted to show you is how to improve on... actually, no, I'm going to go back. I'm not going to edit the video. This is doing it live. I wanted to show you something to help you improve your SCV production, because I labeled the mistake, but I didn't label how to correct it. So I'm doing it. F it, we're doing it live. We'll do it live. Okay, so what I wanted to do was actually just talk a little bit about, before I go into the next part of the replay, or the next part of the episode, was how to improve on controlling your units well, but also keeping your SCV production up. And it's actually rather simple. We can use the Reaper as the first example. So this is the period of the game where it was like 320 when we made the SCV count to 10. So I'm just going to bring up your your control again. And we'll do this example instead of the Hellion one, looking at your control. Because this is where the SCV, and I'm going to keep the production tab open instead to be able to follow your SCV track, okay? But more so your Reaper. So you hotkey your command centers to 1 and the Reaper to 5. This is a little bit of an unorthodox hotkey setup, but I'm not going to go into that now. That's a completely different video. I've got videos on that if you want to know. So you're building an SCV. You're going home to build the SCV, I notice, right? You're controlling the Reaper, but you go home to build the SCV and go home to add your production, which is fine, adding the production, but you go home to do these things. So right now, you need to queue up an SCV, what you're controlling the Reaper. What is a very easy thing to do here is to press 1 on your keyboard. Don't double tap it, don't go home, because if you double tap it, what will happen is you go here, obviously. So you don't do that, just press it once, and it'll load up this. So let's just imagine right now that we press 1. So you got the Reaper controlled. You press 1 on the keyboard. This appears, command centers. Press S and you queue up an SCV. Then press 5 and you go back to your Reaper. And you don't have to move screen at all. So that's very easy to do throughout all of your micro. Just control your units. Press 1S. Just press 1S. Or double tap it to build 2 SCVs is better than 1 sometimes if you're skipping up on SCVs. And this is going to be the best way to improve. You actually did it then, right? You didn't go back to build your SCV, but you queued it up. I can see it queued up, yet we didn't jump back to your base. This is what you need to get more comfortable in doing while moving your units around. The best way to do it, and you know the best method, but to drill it into you will only come with repetition. And that is a very important word, repetition. Because the more you play, you automatically know that, because it's really weird to describe this, and I can start to leave now because that's the example into the show. It's really weird to describe this. It's a feeling. If you ask any pro gamer, you ask anybody that plays at a decent level, if you miss an SCV, you know, but even if you don't see it, because you inside know the feeling of how long an SCV takes, and over time, you'll have this feeling where alarm bells will automatically ring inside of you when you're not building SCVs, because your body just kind of knows how long it takes. And that will only come with time. But what I recommend doing is, as mentioned before, just queue up a couple of SCVs at the same time. Don't try to be fancy and queue up one SCV, wait till the 16th second and then queue up another, because you're going to mess up. Just queue two. It's much, much easier until you can work it in. For example, if you always queue up two, work it down a couple of seconds every time, so eventually you can time it out nicely. So let's say that you queue up two, and then maybe you queue up at the SCV that's at, let's say, 2 seconds instead of queuing up straight away, and then queue it at 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and then eventually you can get to the 16th second mark of that SCV you're building to add it on. But it does take time. But that's definitely a big focus point. So now going back to the next half of the episode is, let's look at this build. And I want to bring up something for you, is this. And this is something that you can see my cursor. I have it, but I'm not showing it. I have it. It's here. All right. I have this for you. And this is going to be in the YouTube video in the notes below. This is the exact build that we're going to be seeing from Bunny. It's everything you need to know, all the timings, when the production begins, when to add on everything, how to switch the factory up, which we'll see, yada, 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 yada. It's all there. Okay, so if it's all there, let's just go through this slowly together. And don't worry, you can always pause the replay, or pause the video, sorry, and you can always look at those notes while we're doing this, and so you can get the precise numbers down if I'm going too fast for you. Because obviously I want to keep the video kind of short, but always remember you can pause the video. All right, so 9 supply depot. The one thing to notice though, as we're looking to really map out a build, as mentioned before, to map out a build in Terran vs. Zerg, it's important no matter what matchup you play. Whatever race you play, whatever matchup you play, know your build inside out. And then once you know the build inside out, it's one less thing you need to worry about. You don't need to worry when you add on barracks. You don't need to worry when to take the gas. You don't need to worry when you add on production or engineering bays or units. It's already in there. And then you can start to think about strategy, unit movement, micro. If it's all mapped out already, that's when you're going to be playing better StarCraft. So always, always, always try to really teach yourself a good build. And that's what I'm going to help a lot of Terran players do today. Here's how to play Terran vs. Zerg. Build order, command center first. So this is command center first, and it's not Reaper expand, but it still gets to the same place that you were previously, just without the Reaper control. So we can fast forward it. It's command center on 14, as the notes say, barracks on 15, gas on 16. And then, of course, you just go for, because you're not going for Reaper, you go double Marine, into factory and reactor, and you just get to where you were in the replay. So I'll just fast forward it for that purpose. You obviously add on the second supply depot here and both orbital commands, which is very important to have just everything, even small details like that, mapped out. All right, let's look at only his build. Now let's slow it down a little bit as things start to get a little bit more complicated, because this is the stage that you're at in the old replay, but here. So you go for the reactor opening, but one thing to note here is that things are a little bit different to how you set up. For example, we see an earlier second gas compared to what you had in your replay, and we'll look at that shortly. So here's the third command center nicely timed in for Bunny. And then the gas will come down on 29 supply, which is just after the next SCV. So the second gas here is to be able to help you fuel the 1-1 upgrades, to help you fuel Stim, and also additional add-ons, which you'll be using very shortly. At this point, while you're building the hellions, you automatically say to yourself, I shall build 6 hellions, and then my factory production is done, and my starting second and third barracks shall begin. That's a timer that I use in my head personally, rather than being like, oh, let me look at the notes again. When does it say to add the second and third barracks? Oh, it says there. Well, that's another timing you can use. Okay, so we have the techlab ready for Stim. Third command center is fine. And the next thing that really will happen in this game is the double engineering bay, because it's a 3 command center build behind 6 hellions, behind Stim and marine production once again. And as we've got the second gas, and as you get close to having 200 gas in the bank, which is how much it costs to get the 1-1 upgrades, as you see 125 gas, start the engineering base. 75 energy or gas before 1-1 is ready. You start it, because then by the time you have that, you can start your 1-1, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so from this point on, you really don't do anything apart from build a lot of SCVs. And if we just actually, let me show you something real fast. So remember the 7-minute mark. Let's go to when the orbital would finish on a command center first, like 420, 425. Okay, just watch this, by the way, and we'll go back to 7 minutes. Watch the command center. SCV, 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 SCV. Consistent, 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 you see? This is how to build exactly 10 workers in like 3 minutes. Is because I think, if you think about it, 17 seconds for an SCV, 180 seconds in 3 minutes. Yeah, that's 10 workers in 3 minutes compared to 5. You save yourself 2 minutes by just build. All right, so here we are again, 7 minutes. So at this point is you're closing up on your 5th and 6th head. We're not looking at micro at all. I don't care about micro right now. I'm looking at the builds, because this is the part. We've looked at micro, we've looked at building SCVs. Let's look at the build. So as your 5th and 6th hellion completes, this is when the factory's free. So this is where you lift it up, you build another reactor, and then you place 2 barracks down. One on the old reactor and one next to the new reactor. What this does, it's a fancy trick for Terran players to use the factory as basically the reactor whore, because the factory is just going to be moving around building reactors all day, because the reactor takes a long time. And if you set up like this, you save and minimize downtime of barracks. Because imagine if you built the barracks like you did, then you have to build the barracks, then add the reactor, then start unit production. Here, you build the barracks, you go. You have units, because it's already on the reactor. There's a small bit of downtime, obviously, when the barracks switches up from this factory. And then you've got a little bit of downtime where it floats, but straight in with the production. So after you've added on these barracks, you start to look pretty much immediately after these, or as soon as these are close to finishing, to add the 4th and 5th barracks. And remember, in that previous game I think we looked at, it was 10 minutes and we were still only on 3 barracks, or we were on 2 barracks and we were adding the 3rd. At the 8-minute mark, we're adding all 5 really, really fast. You've got 3 command centers, you're at 46 SCVs. In the last game, what was it? At 30 minutes, we were on 49 SCVs, and at the 8-minute 30 mark, there's already 47. Only 2 short, yet it's 5 minutes earlier. That's quite a big difference, just by building things consistently. And in the whole scope of things, it's only 8 minutes in the game, which means it's very difficult to make these huge mistakes at only 8 minutes if you know exactly when you're adding everything on. Whew. Okay, so the next part of this replay is, of course, switching up the factory and adding on that barracks very shortly to get your units producing. But the factory hall of reactor is built again. And then a starport is added on. And this is to enable you to build medivacs without the reactor downtime. And this again will be used later on for a reactor for itself, I would imagine, for the Widow Mines. So we now have the Armory coming in, as you can see. As there's a lot of things going on. But of course, if you know all the things you're meant to do, it becomes easier over time. So we have the 1-1 near completion. 60 seconds remaining. We're going to add the Armory on, so we can go straight to 2-2. 3rd command center is going to be taken at 9 minutes here. 9 minutes is kind of fast. I think innovation during like maybe almost a year ago was putting the 3rd command center down at 8 minutes over here. 9 minutes is in the middle, and we see some Terran players nowadays playing it cautiously and even wait up to 10 minutes before the 3rd goes down. In this game, it's 9. It's like middle of the road. Depending on how greedy, how safe you want to be, will depend on when you lift up and go mine from that 3rd base. So we have just that for now. The next part of this is really just kind of getting ready for the 4th and 5th barracks, or the reactors for them, of course, and then just looking to add on the extra production. Because if you think about the regular Terran setup, is you're going to be aiming for about 8 barracks overall. We're currently at 5. You're going to be aiming for 2 factories. So the thing that's missing is 3 more barracks and 1 more factory. And then you've got everything. You've got everything already. Remember that. 8 barracks, 2 factories, 1 starport is your production versus Zerg by the time that you set up on 3 bases. So we can pretty much just fast forward a little bit here because we're going to see the reactors added onto the barracks. We're going to see the starport added onto this reactor. And then what we should see is the extra production coming soon. Here's the other reactor for the factory, which is going to be for Widow Mine production. And as you start to mine money from this third, and by the way, always, when it comes to your gases, the gases, by the way, are put down in the notepad you can see underneath, the first, second, third, and fourth. But on the third base, only ever versus Zerg take this 1 gas. Pro gamers only take... Well, you can take 2. There's no problem taking 2. But you have a lot of gas that you can't really spend. Pro gamers have refined it to where they just take 1 gas because they don't need much gas compared to the minerals that they're going to have. So if you want to copy the build exactly, you can take 1 gas. It requires less SCVs, of course, because you don't need 3 in the other gas. And you're not going to really use it anyway. Okay, so if we fast forward here, we should see the extra factory soon because obviously you want to be at 2 factories. 1 with the reactor for double Widow Mine, 1 with a tech lab for drilling claws, and also 3 extra barracks. So here's the second factory, and here's the 3 extra barracks. And this gives us 8 barracks, 2 factories, and starport for 3 bases. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause at 13 minutes, sorry, and just kind of overly look at this setup. It's been beautifully done. Like 16 SCVs over 24 is on the natural. 12, that's I guess because there's been a lot of these SCVs aren't mining because they've been building supply depots. So that's technically a mistake from Bunny. And then all these juicy reactors on these barracks. This one's 22, a little bit high on the SCVs I would say here. But the 4th command center wouldn't be that far away where he would go mine from a 4th base soon anyway. But in this game I asked him to have a short game because it's only 14 minutes. But there you go. That's how to beautifully set up the production for a Terran player against Zerg. Just nice and easy, lots of barracks. There is one other thing that gets added on in this matchup just to complete the whole package. Let's say our opponent is going up to Hive and Ultralisks. Usually you see 2 more barracks added on for a total of 10. So that you can get 2 more for tech labs and Marauder production. That's the one extra thing that usually can get added on. But overall, that's how to get beautifully set up here. And if you look at numbers now, just a quick look at, I know it's a comparison and it's a pro gamer versus you, Peter, so it's not a big deal, but it is also the scale of things. At the 30-minute mark, you had 49 SCVs. Here, there's 72. Bunny was at 47 at basically the same time you were. And look at all the production that's set up. At that same point, you were at 5 barracks. Or you had four barracks and maybe a couple more in production, and only that 1 factory and 1 starport. And this is all set up now, all ready to go. And from this point, you just focus on building out those units, and then sort of focus on the fight. So let me just bring up this once more, because this is really heavily focused on the build here, more so than looking at controlling your units, which you're great at, but focus on this for now. So here's the build once more again. It's kind of a Snapchat of it. The double orbitals, you got 2 Marines in the factory, your 3rd command center, when to put the double gases, when to switch to factory, when to start your hellion production, up to how many, Stim, engineering base, extra barracks, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So follow this guide. Follow this. It's going to be in the notes as mentioned before. Follow this and really practice this a lot against nobody. Don't even play against the AI. Just try. Have this up on your second monitor. Have it on a notepad in front of you and try. And then see if you can nail close to this. And try to follow this plan as much as possible. And then come back into trying to micro your units a lot more. And by following this structure, and then thinking about what we talked about before, which was being able to flick back between your units to be able to control your units that are moving down. Press 3 in this game. I mean, you have 1, this is 3 to build your SCVs. In this game, it's 1 for all production for Bunny. For you, it was 4, I think 4. Whatever it is, you know, flick between both, get all your units producing. And as you can see, while the fight's going on, even the barracks are lighting up. Let's choose a different fight, maybe. because this is near the end of the game. You might even stop playing. So I'm gonna open up all the barracks. Wait, where's the barracks? There. Let's just follow this. So as you can see, there's a lot of units building, and I'd imagine that they'll always be building units. They're always adding on Marines. Always adding on Marines. Always adding on. Always adding on. Okay, cool. Okay, that's what I wanted to go through today in this episode. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it and had some fun, and also learned a lot of how to set up a solid infrastructure for playing against the Zerg race. If you guys want to be featured in the show as well, do make sure to send in your emails to improvewithapollo@gmail.com, and also make sure to subscribe, because then if you do, you'll get the notification within your subscription box, your inbox, whatever it is on YouTube, that I have a video gone live. Maybe you already have, maybe you already got this notification. So thank you very much for subscribing, and until next time, I will see you later.